Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa bihi nasta'in ala umuri dunya waddin wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulil amin Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'in. My dear brothers, my presentation this morning is about the Islamic State and its viability. No doubt, this is a very fascinating subject, yet it is quite difficult in facing this sort of topic, particularly in our challenging days today. And for that matter, I need your to remove this. Why? Oh, because of you want to see the beauty. So the issue of the Islamic State and its viability is indeed important, because from the chart which I have written here, I have 5 aspects today which I want to approach. Of course, we will divide into 2 parts. Number 1, about the theoretical aspects, dealing from the foundations of Islam as well as its history in the past and also present. And later on, we will move to what are realities when we talk about the demands to establish an Islamic State today in the Muslim world. Number 1, the historical background, briefly. As you know that, starting from the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the idea of Islam as a way of life, which is not making any sort of differentiation between worldly affairs and other worldly affairs. There is no demarcation, there is no separation between religion as well as the affairs of managing people, what it is called today state. Of course, in the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there wasn't any single name of the Islamic State, but the principles, the concepts, the practicalities were indeed proven that it was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam who was then also as a final messenger, yet he was also a ruler. This can be seen through the Sahif al-Madinah, which is also known as the first ever written constitution in the world. They call it Constitution of Medina. In that constitution, principles of justice, equality, universalism, morality, respectation of human dignity, all are found in that very historical documentation. That was the cornerstone, the pillar, the foundation for what we are discussing today, the Islamic State. Later on, followed by the establishment of the 4 caliphate system, the 4 Khulafa al-Rashidun, starting with Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, Sayyidina Umar radhiyallahu anhu, Sayyidina Uthman bin Affan radhiyallahu anhu, and Ali karamallahu wajh. And as you know that there was also ups and downs in the affairs of Muslim states after the demise of Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajhah, the coming up of Banu Umayyah, Banu Abbasiyah, and until the establishment of the Ottoman Caliphate. And the Ottoman Caliphate marked in the history of modern civilization as one of the most successful empires in Islam. Although in the latter part, there was a declining because of the internal factors. And when Mustafa Kemal Atatürk ruled Turkey, and Mustafa Kemal was immersed in the ideology of Western secularism, then he abolished the caliphate system. The final sultan was known as Sultan Abdul Hamid Al-Thani, the second Sultan Abdul Hamid. The impact of abolishing this caliphate system sparked the movement of caliphate in the South Asia continent, in India, as well as in the Middle East, in Southeast Asia. And for the first time, one renowned Muslim scholar by the name of Riphah, originally from Syria, a disciple of Sheikh Muhammad Abduh, wrote a book entitled Al-Khilafatul Uzma, the Great Caliphate. There, he was the first who coined the term Ad-Dawlah Al-Islamiyah, the Islamic State. So that was the first historical background. Second, I'm coming to the role of contemporary Islamic movements. We must mention the names of Imam Hassan al-Banna. Through his movement, Al-Ikhwan al-Muslimun, the Society of Muslim Brotherhood, one of the objectives is to establish an Islamic state in the world, beginning with Egypt and other parts of the Middle Eastern countries, like Syria, Iraq, and so on. But he found a strong resistance from internal and external. So Hassan al-Banna wrote some works about the importance of establishing the Islamic State in the world. Followed by another great scholar, reformist, here from Pakistan, the late Abul Ala al-Maududi, who has written a lot on the importance, significance of the Islamic State. Abul Ala justified from Quranic verses, sayings of the Prophet Muhammad SAW and other renowned scholars of Islam. Because for him, to implement the Islamic State is to implement the will of Allah. It is not a mundane affair. It is not a worldly affair. It is part and parcel of requirement of Tawheed, requirement of Sharia, requirement of Akhlaq in Islam. So one of the very, very important works of Maududi is that the Islamic constitutional law, which is a very, very important work of him, and also about the notion of the Islamic State, as well as the notion of non-Muslims' rights in the Islamic State. Okay? And of course, after that, new figures in the Islamic movements from Sudan, like Dr. Hassan Turabi, he has also struggled to establish an Islamic State in Sudan, and he has a lot of contributions in terms of ideas, thoughts on the importance of the Islamic State. From Tunisia, a person known as Sheikh Rashid Ghannouchi has also struggled to establish an Islamic State in Tunisia, and he has also a lot of contribution on the prospects and problems on the Islamic State. Presently, he is a political asylum residing in UK. In Indonesia, Rashid Ghannouchi in Indonesia, there was a charter known as Jakarta Charter, whereby the Islamists, led by Muhammad Nasir, the first Prime Minister of Indonesia, from Masyumi Party, Majlis Syura Al-Ummah Al-Indonesia, the Islamic Shura Party of Indonesia, they call it Masyumi. Majlis Syura Al-Ummah Al-Islamiyah Al-Indonesia, they made an abbreviation known as Masyumi, M-A-S-H-U-M-I. He fought with Sukarno to establish the Islamic State in Indonesia, whereby Indonesia has the largest Muslim population from the time when Indonesia has been liberated from the Dutch colonialism. There was a Jakarta Charter, where the content of Jakarta Charter is exactly the Islamic constitution, to bring the idea of Islamic State in Indonesia. So, my dear brothers, more or less, I have given you the brief historical background. Of course, we can go beyond, but we do not have to delve on this because we have other things to do. Now, I'm coming to the second part. Concepts and objectives of the Islamic State. What are the main principles? What are the main objectives of this Islamic State? Why we want to differ with secular states? You might want to say that the secular state also having what I have written over there. But you have to be bear with me for a while. Number one, as far as I'm concerned, I think, first and foremost, the idea of the Islamic State is to establish justice. Al-Adalah. Inna Allah ya'murukum bil-'adli wal-ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsya'i wal munkari wal baghi. There are a lot of verses in the Quran where the objective of the Quran is to uphold justice for all mankind, not only for Muslims. Al-Qist, for all mankind. I'adilu fahuwa aqrabu lit-taqwa. You have to uphold justice because justice brings you to taqwa. So, the idea of justice, the idea of equality for all mankind, irrespective of color, no racism, no chauvinism, you know, chauvinism, the feeling of ta'assub of any particular race, and to uphold morality, al-akhlaq, for all mankind. You may not find this in the secular state. They are not care so much about morality. They might talk a lot about justice and equality. I'll give you one example. In the name of democracy, some Western countries or Eastern countries, they might pass a law on the basis of one vote, they will win. Although it might be opposed by many members of parliament. Say, in a parliament, it has 100 people. 51 members of parliament want prostitution to become the legal income of the country. 59 oppose. But because of the one vote, in the name of democracy, they say it is legitimate. So they don't care about halal or haram. As long as we got now approval from MPs, despite the fact that there was a strong opposition, 49 opposed to the proposal to legalize prostitution as the national income, they don't care about morality. But in the Islamic State, we are so much caring about morality. There is no legitimacy whatsoever to be named as the Islamic State if you are depriving the principle of morality. Okay? Second, which is also very important, and this is also the beautiful of Islam, the beauty of Islam, to protect the individual rights. Not an individual right, the individual rights. In what category? Islam provides us 5 principles. Number 1, to protect your religion. Even non-Muslims who are living in the Islamic State, Buddhists, Hindus, Christians, Jews, Confucianists, Taoists, Jainists, Baha'is, still, their religions are protected. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. No compulsion on religion. La ikraha fid din, which is very, very important. And for Muslims, number 1, we have to protect our religion. Number 2, we have to protect our al-aqlu, our reason, our intellect. Islam respects al-aqlu. Number 3, Islam protects descendant and nasal. You know descendant? The family institution, your zuriyah, your progeny. Number 4, Islam respects al-mal. Your property is well protected. Nobody can steal. Nobody can bribe. Nobody can control, for Muslims and non-Muslims. And finally, Islam respects very much al-'ird, or dignity of human being. Laqad karramna bani Adam. So these are 5 principles where in the Islamic State you are requested to respect and to implement this. Number 3 is to implement the principle of enjoining good and forbidding evil. Al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahyu anil munkar. Enjoying good and forbidding evil. Al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahyu anil munkar. I didn't write over there. You want me to write al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahyu anil munkar? وَالنَّهْيُ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ الْأَمْرُ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَالنَّهْيُ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. This is another important principle because it is there in the Quran. And in the Islamic State, it is a must. In a secular state, there is no such emphasis on al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahyu al munkar, because in the secular state, they maximize freedom. It is your freedom. You want to do whatever you like to do, it is up to you. We don't bother. Like now, what is happening in the secular state, the emergence of gay societies in Europe, in USA, in Canada. We can't allow this in the Islamic State. We must have our muhtasib. There is one institution in the Islamic State we call muhtasib. This is a moral police. in a modern term. It was implemented as an institution in the time of Prophet Muhammad, in the time of Khulafa al-Rashidun, in several times during the ups and downs of the Muslim states during the Umayyad, Abbasid, and so on. So the principle of al-amru bil ma'ruf wa nahyu al-munkar is very important. Today, the gay societies in America, in Canada, they are mushrooming, even on campuses. Nobody can touch the office. They will sue you in the court. You might be prisoned if they found that there is a room for them to sue you. So you be careful. But that will never ever happen in the Islamic State. You can see now the differences between the Islamic State and the non-Islamic State. Okay. Now I'm coming to the third part. Mechanism of the Islamic State. I think number one, what is so important is al-imama. The word imama. Today in modern term they call leadership. And ulama, many renowned ulama, I can name some of them like Ibn Taymiyyah, Al-Juwayni, Al-Mawardi in his book Al-Ahkam Al-Sultaniyah, Imam Al-Ghazali, Ibn Abu Rabi' and so on. They have discussed in details what are requirements for a leader which is supposed to be obeyed, and also people in the country must make bay'ah, a kind of obedient oath to that particular leader. There are requirements for that. Of course, a Muslim, a mu'min, aqil baligh, reasonable, puberty, it is not fisk, not fasik or isyan. Of course, he is wise, knowledgeable in Islam is a condition. A leader in the Islamic State must be possessing the Islamic knowledge, and also having a healthy body, just, adil. These are criteria. These are requirements put by Islam as has been discussed by our previous ulama. So you must have this, a kind of what it is called also in the past, ahlul halli wal aqdi. They call in the past as, so can I rub this? Yeah, ahlul halli wal aqdi. Halli wal aqdi. This is a special term to describe the quality of leadership in the Islamic State, where you have leadership who are not disputable in terms of their ability, their morality, their commitment. People of al-halli wal-aqdi, bound and loose in a general English translation. Member of bound and loose. This is what it is called. Ahlul halli wal-aqdi. You cannot bring Tom, Dick and Harry to become a leader in the Islamic State, or a person who is disputable in terms of his or her morality. Second, actually I would put number 3 first. judicial system where Sharia, go to number 3 first, now becomes number 2. Sharia is the prime mover of the state. That is the very, very important criteria to implement Sharia in all its angles, not partial, including hudud. You know hudud? The criminal laws in Islam. The criminal laws in Islam. Today, it is a big controversial issue in the Muslim land. And people are championing the cause of Islamic Sharia because they fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a requirement that one has to implement it. Whether you can implement it 100% or less, you have to struggle for that. But you have to have an intention in the Islamic State that part and parcel of its constitution is to implement Sharia in its totality. That would legitimize the Islamic State. Okay? Number 3, Shura. Wa amruhum shura bainahum. The assembly of consultation, where this is a very unique principle. You might want to discuss now about democracy as a rival to Shura. We do not rule out that democracy, it might have some good contents from the Islamic point of view. But democracy also has to be reserved because the concept of democracy is also a concept where people have full power. In Islam, we cannot give full power, 100% power to citizens, to leaders, because we are bound to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What the late Maududi said, in the Islamic State, it is a theocracy. It is a theocracy. Theo means divine. It's not a full cause where you can give power to the people. In democracy, 100% power to the people. What it is called people sovereignty. In Islam, in the Islamic State, God sovereignty. Al-Hakimiyyah lillah. In the Quranic term, Al-Hakimiyyah lillah. Against people sovereignty. That is a criteria. Number 4, of course, in the Islamic system, in the Islamic State, you must have defense system, which is also very important in Islam, where you have the ethics of war. You have also the Department of Military. It has also some features from the Islamic point of view. And finally, the economy in the Islamic State must be fully Islamic. No riba, no oppression, no lavish expenditure, no corruption. But you have to maximize the implementation of zakah in order to create justice for all people. And of course, there are also, I must say also number 6, I can add now, social obligation in the Islamic State, like to give education to all citizens. Talabul almi faridatun ala kulli muslimin wa muslimah. To wipe out illiteracy. To make people knowledgeable rather than ignorance, which can bring them to criticize the government. Ad-dinun nasiha. Leadership in the Islamic State must be immune to criticism. You are not infallible, ma'soom, except in the theory of Shiite, where Shiite, the doctrine of state, they are implementing infallible imam. Ismatul imam. We are different from the Sunni point of view. So these are some of the mechanisms in the Islamic State, where I must also add here the practice of appointment of leader is flexible. You can have election, you can have appointment according to the decisions of Ahlul Halli wal Aqdi, based on the realities of day-to-day affairs. It is flexible. There is no structure in the Quran to say that you have to appoint, you have to make election. No. What is important is to give equality, to give freedom for people to choose your leader. Okay? Now, I'm coming to number 4. Problems in the establishment of Islamic State today. Okay? Here, I have put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, jazakallah. 8 factors or 8 reasons why we are facing some problems in realizing or in actualizing the formation of the Islamic State, particularly where Muslims are in majority. Number 1, the effect of modern ideologies. The effect of modern ideologies. Secularism, nationalism, where after the colonialism of Western rulers in the Muslim states, sons of the Muslim states became the tools, the agents of secularism and nationalism. They were controlling the country, like in Egypt, Jamal Abdel Nasser, who brought the idea of Arab nationalism against the idea of Dawlah al-Islamiyah, Islamic State. Turkey, Kemalism. Indonesia, Sukarno brought the idea of Nasakom, nationalism, socialism, communism. Nasakom. Nasakom. This is Sukarno. Sukarno. Al-Hajj Ahmad Sukarno. A good friend of Nehru and Nkrumah of Ghana during the Afro-Asia conference. Very, very nationalist. In our country, Tunku Abdul Rahman, very much British oriented. In Tehran, Shahanshah, monarch, very secularist, westernist. Okay? Number 2, resists ignorance of Islam on the part of general population, which affect the fate of the contemporary Islamic movements through the elections. All the times, Islamic movement, Islamic political parties, when they entered in the election, except in Algeria recently, the rest of the Muslim world, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Malaysia, Indonesia, Turkey, Egypt, Tunisia, and so on, Sudan, except Sudan, they were defeated. Why? One of the reasons, because general population do not understand Islam as a way of life. Only now, younger generation, after the coming of the Islamic resurgence in the 70s, or even after this resurgence, people are still behind. They know Islam only as a ritual religion. Islam is only performing prayers, Hajj, observing fast, going to Mecca, or even Zakat also, they are not really understand it fully. Only Zakatul Fitr. They do not know the importance of Zakatul Mal. I want to say general population. They are ignorant of Islam. Number 3, legacies of Western colonialism in the educational institutions, economic institutions, and judicial institutions. Very, very, very important. These are the people who are very much Western oriented. In the field of judicial institution, hardly that we heard any judge in the Muslim country understand what is hudud, what is Islamic Sharia. Only a little bit change after the present rising tide of Islam. Our judges in the Muslim land, mostly they were very much British or French oriented. In the field of education, they have divided into the so-called religious school and secular schools. A bifurcation that has brought the elite, the bureaucrat who are controlling the country, they are Western educated. They are not Islamist. What more in the field of economy? Bankers, financiers, they are very secular. They don't care about riba. They are immersed with riba system. Only now a little bit changes. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Number 4, resistance from the international order. All the way after they left our countries, Britain, America, France, Italy, they are not happy to see any particular Muslim land to be strongly Islamic. As I have said to you, there is a verse in the Quran which describes the situation after any particular ruler colonized any particular land. Allah says in the Quran, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, قالت إن الملوك إذا دخلوا قرية أفسدوها وجعلوا أعزة أهلها أذلة وكذلك يفعلون. صدق الله العظيم. إن الملوك, verily, those kings, rulers, and Maududi and other Mufassir, they also attribute this to colonialists, British, Americans, French, Italians, Spanish, Dutch. When they entered into a particular country, they create evil and automatically the izzah, the dignity of the Muslim population there, eventually they were humiliated, and they will continue to do that. So we have this sort of inferiority complex in the heart of Muslims. Always we look into the grand picture of Western countries, England, America, Holland, France. When it comes to Islam, there is a feeling of inferiority, a kind of complex. See? Number 5, resistance from non-Muslim citizens. This, I would say, in the context of Malaysia, Indonesia, Jordan, Egypt, where you have quite a number of Christians, Buddhists, or Hindus. Now, they are the ones who are opposing this idea of Islamic State. I may have my own topic coming back from Lahore on Malaysia. I will deal on this matter in details. But briefly, now Chinese, Indians in Malaysia, in Indonesia, they are afraid of this Islamic State. They always think that when we are in the Islamic State, we will become second-class citizens. Always in their mind, they would become second-class citizens. Their rights would be deprived. They are afraid of hudud, that their hands will be chopped, amputed. Now, I have a lot of discussions with our fellow Chinese and Indians, forums, seminars, debates, more and more now, with the pressure also of media, which is also another factor to resist the establishment of the Islamic State because of the power of media in the West, in the Muslim countries, in the minority Muslim countries, which influence mind of the bureaucrats, mind of the people, that this Islamic State is a kind of monster, like what happened in Iran, in Sudan, in Saudi Arabia, and so on. Another point is that there is also a strong criticism on the position of women in the Islamic State. Particularly this resistance coming from women, like the movement of women liberalism, or liberalist movement of women emancipation movement. They say that, they claim that the Islamic State would not provide position of women, would not protect rights of women. Women would be deprived even worse than Western countries. In our country, Malaysia, there is a group known as Sisters in Islam, very vocal against the nature of Islamic State, because they claim that they will not become ministers, they will not become MPs, they will not become judges, they cannot work as bankers. Women will be confined only to homes, houses, and so on. Another factor is that there is no specific model of the so-called modern Islamic State today, which is available, that you can copy 100%. Always the opponents of the Islamic State, when we have discussion, they would ask this question: can you mention to me, show to me any particular model of the modern Islamic State which I can follow among some Muslim secularists or non-Muslims. Of course, we say we do not have the perfect ones, but we can say Saudi Arabia, at least Sudan, and Pakistan has tried. Pakistan has tried to a little bit. Yeah. Sudan has been trying much better than Saudi Arabia.
And Turkey in era of
yeah, but then they say that we do have a lot of complaints also on Sudan. They deprive rights of non-Muslims. There is no full democracy over there. They claim. I have been to Sudan many times as well. I met also figures of the Islamic State over there. But I found that Sudan's experiment is indeed wonderful. We are encouraged to defend Sudan, although we are not denying the fact that we cannot get absolute perfection since we are facing a lot of challenges today. Okay? And finally, I think perhaps there is also some sort of wrong strategies which Islamic movements directly or indirectly involved in it. It might be wrong strategies in terms of movement to bring the victorious for the notion of the Islamic State through the election. Finally, prospects for the future. Here I put several reasons. Number one, the resurgence of Islam has opened a new debate on the Islamic State, of its viability in the modern era. There are those who are favor of it, there are those who are opposed of it, and there are those who are indifferent. But it looks like there is a prospect better now when we see the experiments of Sudan, the experiment in Pakistan, to a certain extent the experiment in Malaysia, although it is not a full-fledged, only partial, yet the Prime Minister politically challenged the Islamic Party by declaring Malaysia is the Islamic State. And he challenged us to come up with a written document about past notion of the Islamic State in comparison of what UMNO, the present ruling party, United Malay National Organization, which has declared that Malaysia is the Islamic State. And of course, Saudi Arabia, despite the fact that there is a monarchy system, but the main feature is the implementation of Sharia. There are also some positive and negative aspects of the so-called the Islamic Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and of course Iran. We might have some differences in terms of Shiism, but at least I think they are brave enough also to show to the world that they are religiously state from the beginning by putting the role of ulama, the role of shura, the role of sharia, the role of qudah, judges, and they are trying to approach the country, the state, Islamically. although it might have also some reservations, some oppositions inside and outside the country with regard to the question of freedom in Iran. Also the question of sectarian between Shiism and Sunnism. So here, my dear brothers, more or less, it is a very burning issue. Many books are coming up now, articles about the question of Islamic State, and we must deal this matter objectively, not emotionally, although we must have a high spirit to see, inshallah, one day the global will accept the idea of their state from the Islamic perspective. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.